the seller's disclosure. Everybody got that? Flipping to it, keep going there. No, you're, no,
Okay, you're all on the right tab. You just need to flip a
keep
couple.
going. Oh, you're good.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Everyone got it? Dave got it? Okay. What do we know about the seller's disclosure statement? Anyone know? Here's the best part of this class. You guys don't want me to talk the whole time. Participation is the most important thing. There's no such thing as a dumb question, because if you think it's a dumb question, somebody else probably got the same question that they're afraid to ask. So what can you tell me about what you know about the seller's disclosure statement?
It's a statement that,
Go ahead, Andrea.
it's a statement that the seller has to fill out with reference to their property, to disclose what they know about the property to the prospective buyer.
Correct. And by the way, you guys, these are your books to keep. Put your notes right in them.
Take
Right
notes
on.
right on the paper, or you can take notes on the page
Yep.
directly behind it.
Yep. The seller's disclosure statement is a Michigan form, and it's a Michigan law that it has to be filled out. The lead-based paint disclosure is actually a federal law. Okay, so that's the difference in the two. The seller's disclosure has to be filled out by the seller to the best of their knowledge. And the only way somebody can really get in trouble with the seller's disclosure is if they lie. If they lie, they're in trouble. Up until a couple of years ago, there were very few court cases that actually made it to court because of people lying, but it has gotten very common that things are ending up in court. People have way too much time on their hand now. And so if something's happening after close and they can prove that this person lied, then the buyer is going after an attorney's level. So if someone's selling for sale by owner, do they have to fill one out? Yes. Yes, they do. Okay. Nowhere does it say if it's a listed property seller's disclosure. It is a seller's disclosure. Who doesn't have to fill out a seller's disclosure? What's that? Okay, well, they're going to sign on it, but from a seller's point of view, who doesn't have to sign it or fill it out? Actually, that's not where I was going with that, but that's an excellent point. The term seller's disclosure, I want you to flip to page 2 of this real quick. Down on the bottom of page 2 there, who signs this? Seller and buyer. Guess who doesn't sign this?
Agent.
This is probably the only form that agents don't sign. So what does that kind of tell you? Don't touch this form, okay? Don't even, if somebody says, can you help me fill this form out? You can't. If they don't understand what certain things are, don't fill out. We had a problem, you guys. This class is it's not just how to fill out a form, it's kind of a lot of, I don't say stories, but situations. We had a situation probably 2 years ago where an agent helped the seller fill out the form and it was incorrect. And that buyer moved into the house and there were all sorts of problems. So the buyer hired an attorney to fight this. The seller said, my agent filled out the form. And the agent said, yeah, I helped him fill it out. Unfortunately, this got to the attorneys before it ever got to me. And what ended up happening is English wasn't the agent's first language. English wasn't the seller's first language. And their first languages weren't the same. So there was just a mess. It cost us money to the buyer to get out of this. This is not get out of it, but to solve the problem. So do not touch this form. This is the best way I can put it. All right, I'm going to go through this. The person writes their address on it. Purpose of this statement. This is the statement. This statement is a disclosure of the condition of the property in compliance with the Seller's Disclosure Act. The statement is a disclosure of the condition information concerning the property known by the seller. In other words, if the seller doesn't know, they're okay to put unknown. They just can't lie. Unless otherwise advised, the seller does not possess expertise in construction, architecture, engineering, or any other specific area related to the construction or conditions of the improvements of the property or land. Also, unless otherwise advised, the seller has not conducted any inspections of generally inaccessible areas such as the foundation or roof. The statement is not a warranty of any kind by the seller or by the agent representing the seller in this transaction. It is not a substitution for any inspection or warranties the buyer may wish to obtain. That tells you what it is. If they moved in the house 5 years ago and a neighbor told them, hey, the roof was done the year before, does the seller need to disclose that?
Yes.
No, they wouldn't know for certain that's what it is.
That is correct. It's really from the time frame they own the house. Okay, now if they had let's say this buyer had given them, the previous seller had given them a warranty on the roof saying it was done, 6 months earlier, then they'd have to disclose that. But hearsay doesn't really matter. Okay, so it's for really the time they've been in the house. All right. The seller discloses the following information with the knowledge that even though this is not a warranty, the seller specifically makes the following representations based on the seller's knowledge at the signing of this document. Upon receiving the statement from the seller's agent is required to provide a copy to the buyer or the buyer's agent. The seller authorizes its agents to provide a copy of the statement to any prospective buyers in connection with any actual or anticipated sale of the property. The following are representations made solely by the seller and are not the representations of the seller's agent, if any. Okay, so we talked about this. By keeping your hands off of this, guess what? You guys stay out of trouble. If you start saying stuff about, oh yeah, the seller told me this, guess what? You got a problem, all right? So you need to make sure that you're not touching this. It's information and disclosure only is not intended to be part of any contract between the buyer and seller. And I'm going to come back to this in a minute because I don't like that statement, and I'll tell you why. How does the other side get this form? Does anybody know?
The buyer side, the agent,
How does the buyer and buyer's agent get this form?
the sellers.
Okay, be more specific.
They make an offer.
What's that?
They make an offer.
Nope.
The listing agent puts it in the MLS.
What she said.
Exactly. Agree with that one, what she said. All right, you're gonna hear terms that are probably foreign to you. Anyone? Not you guys. Anybody here know what the MLS is?
Yes.
What is it, Misha?
Multiple listing service.
Right, if you're going to show homes, you're gonna go online and pull up the listings that are in the multi-list. And in there, there's a place under every property to click on an icon, and that'll print up the documents pertaining to the house you're dealing with. In the lead-based paint and the seller's disclosure will be all there. So when you're either going to show people the house, some people bring them along every time they show a house, or when you're writing an offer, you need to give this to your client. What happens if a buyer doesn't get this form? The seller didn't upload it into the system. The seller's agent didn't upload it. Anyone know?
They have the right to walk away from it.
Up till when?
3 or 7 days, I can't remember.
It's actually almost up to the point of closing. So if you as the listing agent didn't put it in the multi-list and the buyer wrote an offer and it wasn't included, they could walk away from the deal and get their money back. So now we're going to put a little twist on it. Doug walked in just in time here, so I get to pick on Doug. He's my favorite whipping post here.
That's why I put it in the chair.
Yeah, You guys, what happens if we said that if the buyer doesn't get the seller's disclosure, he can walk away from the deal? But we're gonna pick on Doug. So I picked on Terry the other day. Today it's Doug. Let's say Misha is Doug's agent. Oh, actually, let me rephrase that. Doug is Misha's agent. I want him to be the guy, bad guy. Doug is Misha's agent. Doug sees my listing in the multi-list and calls me up and says, hey, I don't have your seller's disclosure isn't uploaded. I go, all right, Doug, I'll send it right over to you. I send it right over to him. But guess what Doug doesn't do? Then give it to Misha. Does Misha get to kill the deal? Because she never saw it. Who says Misha gets to kill the deal? These 6 people that don't want to put their faces on there. Misha gets to kill the deal, okay? Unfortunately for Misha, she doesn't get to kill the deal because Michigan law is pretty clear. What the agent knows, the client knows. So Doug knows about it. Doug didn't tell you. Now, do you have a problem with Doug at that point?
Yes.
Yes, you do. This is why I wanted Doug to be bad guy.
That's when I have to sue him for specific performance.
Well, no, you get to sue him because of agency. You didn't do his fiduciary duty. So, yes. So just realize, you guys, if you get information, Phil,
That was weird.
Phil was on the screen a minute ago. If you can't get out of your fiduciary duty. If you know something, you need to tell your clients. All right? Any questions there? So where I said I wasn't sure, I didn't like that line. This information disclosed is not intended to be part of any contract between buyer and seller. In my mind, because of that, that is part of contract. If you can kill the deal, to me, it's part of contract. So I don't necessarily, most of the forms in this book, the purchase agreement, were created by myself and a couple other people in the office. This form is a state form. So there's issues on here that I can't change. I'm not in a position to. All right. Instructions to seller. Answer all questions, report known conditions affecting the property. Attach additional pages with your signature if additional space is required. Complete this form yourself. If some terms do not apply to your property, check not available. If you do not know the facts, check unknown. Failure to provide a purchase agreement with a signed disclosure statement will enable a purchaser to terminate an otherwise binding purchase agreement, which is exactly what we were just talking about. All right. Question, Doug?
I do have a question. So, I'd probably say 60% of the time I see forms not filled out correctly. Meaning they're marking no instead of.
So my next question with Doug jumping the gun here, which is okay. I want you to go, we'll get to that. Appliances, system services. The items below are in working order. The items below are included in the sale of property only if the purchase agreement so provides. What does that statement mean? That last part, the items below are listed. Anybody want to jump in there?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
it's
I have the real Warren there. I wasn't sure if I had the fake Warren or the real Warren. Go ahead, Andy. Or Andrea, go ahead.
The seller has to put on the purchase agreement if they want appliances or not.
The seller or the buyer?
The seller has to put on the purchase agreement if they want.
Now, the buyer is going to put on the purchase agreement. The seller is going to put them in the MLS, but the buyer needs to ask for them. And where this is important is appliances, your washer, your dryer, stoves, and refrigerator. If just because they're on the multi-list ticket doesn't mean they're included. They're only included if the buyer writes a full price offer in terms. You're gonna hear the saying price in terms. That means how much it's listed for, or how much you're writing the offer for. And if the terms are cash, conventional, FHA, VA. So those are gonna be on the listing. And let's say it just said cash and conventional, and you wrote an FHA offer, that's not terms. You could still get it accepted, but those aren't the terms they're offering right now. Now, you always want to make sure you're asking in your purchase agreement what's included. If you want the washer and dryer, make sure you're asking for it. I will tell you guys something, and people laugh at me. You're not an agent until you have to buy an appliance for somebody, because at some point you're going to slip up. And when you write that check for $400 or $500, you're going to realize that Pete knew what he was talking about.
I don't have like the additional conditions in that.
Yes, that is correct. So what they're talking about here is if you have a refrigerator and you're not planning on taking it, or I'm sorry, you are planning on taking it, not leaving it, do you have to fill out this form under refrigerator?
Yes.
She's just too smart. What did I tell you about that, you guys? You do have to, even though, but if I say, well, you know what, I'm keeping my refrigerator. Would you guys all agree that everything has a price?
Yes.
If I give you enough, you say, yeah, I'll include the washer and dryer. But to do that, what do I as the buyer want to know?
How long you had it? How
Not so much how long I had it, but
Does it work?
does it work? Because if it doesn't work, I don't want your problems, right?
Right.
So you always have to answer those questions. Now, this is kind of where Doug was going here. You've got yes, no, unknown, and not available. What do you guys think the box that's going to get checked the most is?
Unknown.
Yes.
The yes box.
It's not no. What was that? Did I hear?
The yes box.
Unknown.
Who said the yes box?
I did.
Angela's been through this, by the way, so she knows. In most cases, your yes box is going to be what's filled out the most. And the reason I bring this up is 9 times out of 10, you're going to say something to the seller and say, okay, most of your answers are going to be this or this. You'll turn your back and you'll find out that that's not the box to check in. What do you think is going to be next?
Unknown.
Not available.
Who said that? Is that Debbie? Who said not available? Somebody said.
I said not available.
Okay. I thought I was hearing things there for a second. There you go. Not available is correct. So most of your answers are going to be in the yes or the not available box. Okay. And this is where you're going to turn around and you're going to find out they're going to check yes or no. Yes means you have it and it's in working order. Okay. No means you have, no means you have it and it's not working. How many things do you guys have in your house that aren't working? Okay, not that many. People get the no confused with not available. They'll say, you know, they're filling this out and they go electric system, all right, intercom, and they'll put no, meaning no, they don't have it, but that's not the right answer. No would mean I have it and it doesn't work. So not available should be the second most checks. When you're looking at something, I can usually glance down, and Doug's absolutely right. You'll find out that most of the checks will be in the yes or no's on the majority of them. And when they're marking no, it should be not available.
Okay,
Right.
so Pete, I have a question.
Yes.
So when we're going over this form with the sellers, of course, we can't say anything, but we can explain to them what the yes, no, unknown.
You
and not
can
available.
you can tell them, Andre, exactly what I just said. So if you can tell them exactly that, hopefully people will get it. Or you know what I do? I'll watch them fill it out. And if they put no, and I know that they don't have intercom. Yeah, if I see that they don't have an intercom, I may say something to the effect of, do you mean no or not available? Because I don't see an intercom here. Okay. I'm not telling them what to put, but I am helping them do this because there's nothing more frustrating when the sellers and the agents don't look at this. They just put it in the MLS. You go to show the house and you start seeing all these mistakes. So guess what you have to do then? Go back to the agent, tell them to, have your client fill out a new one and let's start all over. All right. So
Pete, I'm a bit confused because if no means not available, then what does
no,
that?
that's not what I said. No
What?
means you have it and it doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
See, you're acting you did that on purpose. You're acting like a seller. Good job, Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm here all week.
Yeah, no means you have it and it doesn't work. Not available means you just don't have it.
Okay. So we can explain to them what these categories
Different?
mean.
Yes,
Right.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Here's another one that you guys will see, especially when you're new for some reason. It always happens to the new agents. Across the thing, it'll say never lived in. That is not a properly filled out. What they're talking about, people, investors will write that down, never lived in. That's not correct. They don't have to live in it to know stuff about their property. Now, I've got rental properties. Do I know everything about them? No. Do I know a lot about them? Yeah. So guess what I put down? I answered the questions that I do know, and the ones that I don't know, I put unknown. Okay? So don't let somebody tell you that never lived in is the correct answer. If you got the property from somebody dying and you're the executor of a will, let's say, you can put in there never lived in, and you're exempt. Okay. Or what about a trust? This just came up with somebody the other day. If your property is in a trust, you have to fill it out. This is my first trick question of the day. How about if your property is in a trust? Warren, we'll put you on the spot.
I would say yes. If they're selling a property in the state of Michigan, it would be a required form. So I would think yes. And the trustee,
Okay.
the executive trust would fill it out.
Here's my trick question on that. Why do people put their property in a trust?
To protection.
Correct. So if Warren, can you be the trustee of your trust?
No.
I'm going to give you another option. What do you think that one is?
Yes.
There you go. Perfect. So if I'm the trust of my trust, or if I'm the trustee of my trust, then I have to fill this out. But if I make Doug the successor trustee and I die, Doug doesn't know anything about my property. Guess what Doug doesn't have to do? He doesn't have to fill this out. But if it's the trustee is living, they have to fill the form out. All right. Do you guys want me to go through all these lines here? Is there anything in here people don't know? Glancing down on here.
Pete, can you go over that trust part one more time?
Okay. If you are the trustee of your own trust, then you have to fill it out. If you are deceased and the successor trust is now acting on your behalf, then they don't have to fill it out.
Why?
Because I could make Doug the successor trustee of my trust.
Mhm.
Does Doug know anything about my property?
Probably not.
Correct. That is correct. Doug wouldn't know anything, so you can't put him in a position to answer those questions.
So who would fill it out in that regard?
Nobody.
So
Nobody.
it's not required then?
At that point, that is correct.
Okay.
Not going to be. And Doug's going to ask a question. I've seen that look before.
You asked me if I didn't know anything, so I'm trying to help
Okay.
you out.
All right, hold on. New construction does not need to fill this out, okay? We're going to say there's really bank-owned homes that have been repossessed and the bank has them back, and new construction do not need to fill this form out. What was your question?
You're saying if you can go line item by line item, so I was just trying to go through them all, trying to figure out which one it's someone would have a question on. Fireplace and chimney versus a wood burning system.
That's
I know the difference, but.
Well, that's an interesting one because people interpret that lots of
Same.
different ways, or the same, or
Most
lots of
people
different,
will-
yeah, right. Fireplace and chimney. And wood burning system could be I'm drawing, wood burning stove, could be as simple as that.
Wood burning stove, or some people will actually have the outdoor wood burning system that feeds into the house.
Yeah,
That would
pellets
be a
or,
wood burning system.
so there's nothing, I mean, okay. There's something we should talk about. Septic tank and drain field. Who's got a septic tank? Anybody got a septic tank on here?
Oh, that might count.
Okay. Anybody know what a septic tank is?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Most people around here have sewer, city water, city sewer. Where your water discharges out from your drains into the city system and it goes. Older homes in,
Belleville.
yeah, some in Belleville. I mean, I live in downtown Plymouth. I've got, well, let me rephrase that. I don't have city sewer or city septic. I have city water, city septic. But there's homes in Canton, Farmington Hills that are on a septic field and they don't connect to the sewer. The whole thing is you have a septic tank where the waste goes into the septic tank, and from the septic tank, it goes into what's called a drain field. And the liquids all dissipate into the ground. The solids go into the septic tank. And at some point, depending how many people live in the house, the tank needs to be drained, pumped. Okay. And this is humongous to know that there's a difference. In certain counties, you are required by law as an agent to tell them, you have to notify the seller if you're the listing agent. They have to have a septic tank check and inspection done. And the field needs to be checked. That's in Wayne County. That is a necessity. Now, even if you're not in Wayne County and you're in Oakland County, your buyers should still be having this taken care of. Because what happens is if you don't know you have a septic tank and field, there's different stuff that you can put down. I mean, we're just used to throwing everything down the garbage disposal, grinding it up and calling it a day. If you throw coffee grounds down a house that has septic tank, that will ruin things. Potato peeling, stuff like that. So it's imperative that you know if your house has it. How would you guys know if your house had a septic field and septic tank? Anyone want to guess?
Doesn't it have to be in the, doesn't it have to be listed in the MLS?
That would be a perfect world, but unfortunately, we do not live in perfect worlds, and agents, this is where agents don't know, you guys, and we've gotten into a couple messes in the office, some expensive messes, okay?
Would it be public record?
It should be, but don't necessarily go for it. Who owns a house? Anybody own a house in here? Do you get a water bill?
Yes.
On your water bill, does it say something like WS?
Yes.
What's that stand for?
A well system.
Water and sewer.
Pat. It's sewer, water and sewer.
Yeah.
So sewer means, guess what? You're hooked up to a sewer. You could have city water, but not city sewer. Okay. So you could ask somebody, do you have do you pay a water bill? And if they say no, probably a pretty good bet that they have septic. If they say yes, let me look at the water bill. Let me just look at it. To me, one of the easiest ways are Phil, you got a basement in your house? When you go down to your basement, where do your drain pipes go?
When you go down, yeah, that may be good.
Phil's right on it. He went through the class too. If you have sewer, in most cases, your water pipes are going straight down, not your lines, but your drain lines are going straight into the ground. And then they go into the sewer. If you have septic, for the most part, your line is going out the side of a wall. So if you see a PVC pipe or a cast iron pipe going out the side of a wall, probably a pretty good indication that there's a septic field, or there was a septic field.
And we
So,
have,
Go ahead, Andrea.
so if we're doing a listing and, we're taking our tour around the property, is that one of the things that you're saying we need to pay attention to?
Yep, absolutely. Because when I told you we screwed up on something, we had both the buyer and the seller on this particular transaction. And remember I was talking about trustee? It wasn't the trustee, it was actually an executor of the estate. They didn't know that the people had septic. The buyer's agent didn't realize there was septic. People moved into the house, and then 2 years later, the septic field failed. And when a septic field fails, you gotta either be able to have enough yard to replace it, or that can get expensive to start redoing things, or you have to hook up the city sewer. None of those were an easy. The field failed because they didn't know they had it, so they just never had the property drained, the septic tank, so everything just failed. And it was a $27,000 fix that our E&O company, insurance company, paid for that. However, what happens when you start doing insurance claims?
insurance go up.
Your insurance goes up.
Yep, your premium goes up. And guess what? In our scenario, if Misha screws up and we get hit with a $27,000 claim, who's ultimately helping to pay for that?
Agent.
Everybody else.
Oh, you guys, you pay for E&O insurance. Okay, so my job is to help keep those situations to a minimum. That's why I spend time talking about this. So,
Pete,
yes,
when we're doing our tour, we see the pipe going out of the side of the wall. Do we then verify by asking them if we can see the water bill? Because you said it would be on the water bill.
I would say, my first question is, do you have septic? Okay, and if they say, yes, we do, great. If they say, I don't know, that's probably not so great. And then, they may say, no, they don't know, which is fine. And then you're just going to do a little bit more research on it. But it's usually, you guys, it's most people living in a house know if they have septic or well. Okay, if you're in the middle of,
We could ask you for that person 2 years without knowing.
Right.
exactly. If you're in the middle of, let's say, Northville, and all these new construction, that goes on around here, you're probably pretty safe to assume that they have city water and city sewer. Okay. However, if you're in an older part of Northville, like downtown, you may have some septic there. So these are all things not to scare you. And here's the beauty of it, you guys. If you get to a listing and you don't know, who are you going to call?
Pete,
That's right. And we'll figure it out. It's not Ghostbusters. We're not going to help you. So what's a sump pump?
that's the pump the water out.
From where?
Rainwater.
Where's that water come from?
Sewer, well,
What if it's raining?
It actually comes from the outside of the house. It's not the inside of the house. If you have a house that's nice and square, the drain tiles are on the exterior of the house to keep the water pressure away and from the water coming into the basement. What ends up happening at times is the drain, things get backed up and it comes into the house. So they decided to put sump pumps in the house to take that water and push it away from the house. Okay, I had to talk about Camp and Mrs. Pat.
I had to replace my girlfriend over the weekend.
Okay, here's a bizarre part. Things like this happen to everybody. Somebody at one point told me that there were some pumps that were put in backwards in camp. And I'm thinking that just didn't make sense to me. So I sold this girl a house, literally the day of closing. I go to do the walkthrough because she couldn't be there. I go in the basement and the basement's flooded. And literally have a sump pump on it. I'm going, we're gonna test this. So I call up Kent and I go, hey, did you ever know this?
No, I did not know this, but I'm trying to think what could go wrong, and I think I did, I know.
So what ended up happening, these things, I don't know if they were installed wrong or whatever. Guy goes, disconnect the sump pump and your problem should be gone. And it was after that. So she never reconnected. So I don't know exactly what the whole thing was. Houses built before the 70s did not have sump pumps. Newer homes do. Now, again, the problem is sometimes technology is good, sometimes it's not. And what happens with the sump pump if you go out of town and it rains and your power goes out? Your basement may flood. Okay. So if you're having if you have a sump pump in your house, it would probably make sense to put in a battery backup to where even if the power goes out, your sump pump's still working. Because there's nothing worse than coming home and finding your basement full of water. So.
I was gonna say that when I was guessing it might be a chip out.
Oh, no. This was a sealed sump pump.
Oh.
So. Yeah, this is why this. And it's just funny, it was fluke that somebody told me this and I remembered it. All right. Any other part in here that you guys want me to talk about? I mean, a lot of this is pretty, and again, don't be afraid. If there's something you want to answer the question, I'll, question. What's a wall furnace? Anybody know what a wall furnace is? I'm going to get you really fancy on this.
You said a wall.
A wall furnace.
A furnace that's on the wall?
It's a wall.
Who said it? That was perfect. Andrea, it's a furnace that's on the wall. I mean, most furnaces are in your basement, correct? And you have ductwork that goes from the furnaces to the rooms. Where would you think you'd find a wall furnace?
Probably in a cabin or something like that.
No, that'd be one. What else?
Sunroom.
A what?
Sunroom.
Sunroom, yeah. Family room, well, that was an addition. That they didn't put the ductwork to it, they just put a furnace there. So all that is really something very fancy, a wall furnace. All right. Huh?
Attic fan?
Oh, attic fan. Does anyone know what an attic fan is or another name for an attic fan?
That fan sits up in it, ceiling.
A whole house fan.
A whole house fan. Who said that? Terry's alive.
I'm here.
All right. It's a whole house fan. In other words, it's on the highest floor in the house. If it's a ranch, obviously it's on the main floor. If it's colonial, it's upstairs. And what it does is it sucks all the hot air out of the house to keep it cooler. Now, what most people don't know, if you don't keep the windows open on the lower floor open, your attic fan is doing nothing. You've got to have the windows open so the air gets drawn out through the fan. All right. But they're great. Like in the summertime. I mean, most of the time people that have an attic fan don't need to use their air conditioner.
I don't.
Yeah.
Use mine at all.
Yeah, unless it's blistering hot. Absolutely. The problem with the old ones sounds like an airplane's on your roof.
Yes.
They're pretty loud.
First time I ran mine, I felt sore somebody broke in my house. Wow.
You're right. They're pretty damn loud. All right. Anything else in there? How about,
I have a question.
yes.
It's not on here, but can you talk about window treatments and curtains?
I can. On the purchase agreement, you guys, at least on our purchase agreement, it does address all of those things. On here, it doesn't really get into that. Are window treatments an attachment or personal property?
Attachment.
You guys agree with that? It's a 50-50. Here's the problem.
My
Uh,
curtains match my bedroom set and I want to take them with me.
Well, you're right, and that's why as a listing agent, you need to exclude those from the listing. Let's look around in here. We got nothing in here. I got nothing for you.
Your chandeliers over your light fixtures.
Okay. You guys on TV, can you see can they see that?
What do they want? What do you want them to see?
Just the light fixtures. See those light fixtures over there? Would those stay with the house, with the office, or whatever?
Yes.
Yep.
Correct. They would. Now, let's say we had drapes, curtains, whatever you want to call them.
Marcia has drapes in her background.
Okay, perfect. Marcia, we're gonna use your house. You guys see Marcia's drapes? Do those stay with the house?
Nope, nope.
Rods would stay, but the drapes go.
Oh, there's my man Warren.
What he said.
What Warren say? Say it again, Warren.
The drapes would go, but the rods have to stay because they're attached to the wall.
Correct. What's attached to the wall has to stay with the house. The drapes don't have to. Now, if you have drapes, like Jeff was saying, that matches the bedroom, then you need to exclude those. And this listing agent would put exclude drapes in master bedroom or whatever. These are things, you guys, that become